Welcome to episode 6 of Fascinating, a Star Trek podcast. Mudd's Woman.
In this week's episode, the Enterprise suffers a major power failure when pursuing an unregistered ship. After saving those on board the smaller vessel, Kirk is faced with a difficult choice when his attempts to acquire vital new fuel are hijacked by a man with a fundamentally different moral code.
Are you wearing some unusual kind of perfume or something radioactive, my dear?
No, I'm just me.
Good evening, Ian. That's an interesting aroma you have around you. Is that Old Spice or a bit of napalm you have there?
Ode to Chernobyl.
Ooh. How are things?
Not too bad, Gerry. How are you?
Grand.
How's your half-life?
Decreasing daily.
Rapidly.
Unfortunately. A weird one this week, I thought. When I say weird, I mean bad.
Well, it's a change of pace anyway. There's certainly story elements that are tonally quite different.
Yeah, I went from, I think, saying last week it was my favourite episode to this week being my least, perhaps.
Maybe influenced by the fact there was a good one just before it.
Yeah, I think so. The contrast was evident.
I think one of the things that is part and parcel of watching these one week after another is that you see the differences between just the immediately preceding episode and the current one. And I think it's important to remember when these were first broadcast in the 60s, you had one chance to see it.
For sure.
If you were out on a Tuesday night or whenever it was shown and you missed one, then you just had to pick up with the next one, and that maybe tells a lot of why things are not as serial as maybe you would expect with a modern show.
Mm-hmm. Good point. There was also an odd, I think maybe a mixed message, or one that was hard to decipher. I'm not sure what they were trying to say necessarily in this week's episode.
I think, they're trying to be forward-thinking, but they're unable to envision a world where attitudes are fundamentally changed from 1966. Particularly in terms of the relationship between men and women. They can see women working on a starship, on the bridge of a starship, like Uhura, but they can't see the balance between men and women shifting, as we've even observed in the last 50 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we'll give them I suppose, a pass for trying. And you can't expect them in the 60s to have the same attitudes as we have today.
Well, nowadays there's things that we think we're forward thinking about, and it may well be in 50 years from now we're laughed at, or our attitudes are laughed at as being stunted or without vision.
And you have to be honest and fair as well. There are still plenty of relationships where a woman and a man might get together and she might be perfectly happy just to fight. A footballer's wife. There's plenty around.
There's entire reality shows based on this premise. So
yeah, there are still plenty of people who are after a man
or a woman.
Or a woman,
yeah. So without being critical of any individual people, let's just say it's probably not a show that would be made in this way now, but they were trying.
Mm-hmm.
And failing, but trying.
Well, we'll get into a more detailed chat about...
Why don't we do it in our usual way? We should remind folk watching in...
No, that's enough. Okay. You know where you can get us.
Yeah.
Follow us and watch us and download.
If you want to know what order we're watching them in, go back to a previous episode we told you.
If you like it, tell a friend. If you don't, tell an enemy.
All these things. The usual intro.
You ready?
Let's go. Crack on.
The first note I jotted down this week, and I think I might have to correct it, was Space Pimp.
I don't think he's a pimp.
No, I don't.
And I think that might be influenced because that is a term that's associated with Mudd, and I think it was maybe an NBC executive one. One of the reasons why it wasn't selected as a pilot when it was proposed is it was a story involving a space pimp and 3 hookers, but I don't think that is an apt description of any of those people.
No, I mean, he's quite an unsavoury character, but is he any different to Tinder is today? He's simply a matchmaker.
Well, it depends. We don't get the full backstory. So from if you accept what we're presented with, that these women are willing participants in this scheme, then you would be less critical of him than if you thought they had been coerced, tricked, or in influence to take part.
Yeah, we're getting ahead of ourselves. We start with a captain's log, and the star date is 1329.8.
It is. I knew that.
Did you?
This is the first time I've known the star date.
So those other times you were correct were just good guesses?
Entirely based on my projection of the future.
Okay. What's the Enterprise doing?
It's pursuing an unidentified vessel, as I said in the summary earlier on.
You know, I don't listen to these summaries.
You never have.
No,
for
never.
Years.
Yeah.
Anyway. It seems a fairly mundane task for a big ship like the Enterprise to be carrying out, I suppose, if they're the ones in the vicinity.
Yep, I think that if you had a police vehicle, even if it wasn't, say, traffic or supposed to be on a particular duty.
The car zooms past at 70 miles an hour now. Yeah.
Well, maybe not for speeding. I mean, a large van might not be able to take on, but you will, if you're representing the government or whoever else, you might have responsibilities or duties that you'd expected to see out.
To be fair, they also deliver chilies, so we can't say that any task is too small.
Indeed. Up on the bridge, this unidentified ship refuses to answer any communications, and no one is sure who or what is on board, or indeed where it's from. But it is obvious that it's pushing its engines too far and trying to outrun them.
Yeah, Scotty notes from an engineering point of view that the engines are going to go pop pretty soon.
Technical term, that?
Yes. I thought the next camera angle was quite interesting because we're seeing the bridge, we haven't seen it in this way before, from in front of Sulu, who's sitting down the front in his usual spot, looking back up, and it puts a lot of the focus on Kirk.
Obviously trying out new things, getting a bit confident in themselves.
Uhura's got a new uniform.
Does she?
It's yellow or gold.
Okay.
We see this one more time, but other than that, she's stuck in red. She should be in red. They haven't figured this stuff all out yet.
Yeah, so what's red? Red's engineering sign?
Red is technical engineering, communications, all that sort of thing.
Okay. Things get a bit more hairy. Both ships approach an asteroid belt.
Yeah, I think the idea on the small ship's part is it can hide there, but unfortunately, its engines won't allow it to do so.
No. Do you remember how severe the asteroid belt was?
Well, in what sense severe?
In a Schiller rating?
All right, no, is it 3.5 or something?
3.5, yeah, very good, yeah.
I didn't write that down, but it rings a bell.
Okay.
Spock also notes it's a Class J vessel, but we don't know what a Class J vessel is relative to anything else either.
We don't.
So
Yeah. The Enterprise deploys deflectors.
Yeah, so I was initially a bit confused, because my assumption was that when the engines went, they would explode.
Whose engines?
The wee ships. So Scotty's saying their engines are going to go.
Uh-huh.
So I'm thinking, they're going to... He's pushing them too hard, they're going to blow up.
Yeah.
But that's not... What happens is they just die and he starts to drift. And the risk to the ship is being hit by an asteroid.
Yeah.
That's why the shields will protect it. Because I was thinking, if their engines are going to blow up, you don't want to have them inside your shields.
No.
That's going to hurt you.
Well, it depends. I mean, they can blow up in the sense that you can blow a fuse, as we see it.
It's not a... You do see in other Star Trek quite often when a ship's engines go, the entire ship explodes.
Right, okay.
But that wasn't what was going to happen here. Scotty objects to protecting the small ship with the shields.
Yes, because it puts a massive strain on the ship itself and the Enterprise.
It does, but Kirk makes the order regardless and sends Scotty and Spock down to the transporter room to try and retrieve the crew.
Well, we have the credits before then.
Well, before they go, yes.
Yeah. And before they get down to the transport room as well, there is damage to the Enterprise we need to discuss.
Well, there is. Scotty pointed out that they're pushing themselves too hard, and I think at least one of their, what they call lithium crystals, which will come to be known as dilithium crystals. All right. This is one of only 2 episodes where it's called lithium. We've already done the other one. It was the pilot where no man has gone before. Yeah, it's not just the one. Well, initially it's the one crystal, but they blow a second one very quickly afterwards. And Uhura states that she is getting a distress signal coming from the smaller ship. Yeah, perhaps it's realised its predicament. And at this point, we get down to the transporter room. Scotty has managed to lock onto something. And very soon, we see a flamboyant character. Yes, like something out of Gilbert and Sullivan. Yeah, dressed in a pirate get-up. Yeah, flamboyant's the word that I had down as well. He's got a sort of hack Irish accent as well. Yes. Clearly being put on. Mm-hmm. He identifies himself as Leo Walsh, and he tells them that the reason for the lack of communications was that he couldn't be sure who the Enterprise was. He was pretending he was
worried about them, that they might be the bad guys.
It's a bit dubious, isn't it?
Yeah.
He does confirm, however, that there are 3 more people on board, and they'll be in position now.
Yep, and so Spock, McCoy and Scotty wait to see who will be joining them. But we're back up at the bridge.
Sulu has bad news.
What's that?
The last of the dilithium or lithium circuits is kaput.
Yep, and they are now relying on battery power. What sort of battery can power a spacecraft?
A very big but short-living battery.
Duracell, do you think?
At least one of those, maybe 2 of them. Double
okay.
A's.
Oh, not the wee square ones.
No, the C. Yeah, maybe.
Is that a C? Or is it a 10? I don't know what these things are. Yeah.
I'm not sure.
That's the one you can burn, nip your tongue.
Yeah, if you can touch both the elements, yeah.
But there's a bit of tension as Kirk talks with Scotty, who is having some trouble beaming up these 3 remaining individuals.
We get the first of what will be a recurring theme throughout the series. You won't have noticed probably because you're a new viewer, but McCoy indicates his discomfort with transporters.
Okay.
And that'll come back up again.
It's so bad actually that the other craft has been destroyed.
Yeah, not by the transporter, but it's been hit by an asteroid and destroyed while they're in mid-transport.
So we're not sure whether or not he's managed to beam across the...
Yes, are they in transit or were they destroyed?
So we're down at the transporter room and fortunately we find out that it has been a success. And the other crew members get on board just in time. And things take a turn when the chaps from the Enterprise lay their eyes upon these new arrivals.
Yeah, they're all sort of, ooh. And we see the women in soft focus, so we know they're attractive.
Apparently, yeah. It's an engaging sight of 2 blondes and a brunette. Yeah, I'd say that McCoy and Scotty are captivated.
Mudd gives a positive acclamation as the women materialise. Obviously, he's not affected by whatever has come over the others.
Yeah, and neither is Spock, although he does observe the effect it does have on his crewmates.
Yeah, we'll come back to Spock.
We will. We will.
On the bridge, Kirk seeks a report, but there's nothing coming back from the transporter room.
No. Fortunately, however, things are okay now with the Enterprise, although it's still in battery power. I don't think this was deliberate, but Kirk communicates down and asks them how many they got off. I think at least 2.
Sure. In the transporter room, Kirk's still demanding some kind of response, as you say, and eventually Scotty gives a response.
What was that?
They've got 4 people.
But Kirk is not happy, understandably so, with the whole escapade.
Yes, he wants the captain of the cargo ship brought to his quarters immediately, whether he can walk or not.
Oof, he's not messing around, is he, Kirk?
No.
Not a happy chappy.
Spock decides to drop in a bit of commentary here.
Does he?
Yeah, he notes that Scotty and McCoy are behaving in a curious manner. He asks Mudd if that's all of the crew, and he confirms that was everyone and goes to explain further, but Spock tells him to save it for the captain.
He does.
We get some really weird music playing as the women leave the room and McCoy and Scotty watch them go.
Yes, they caused a bit of commotion as they sashay along the corridor. And now this, again, I'm not sure if it's just me with my 2020 eyes, but it looks like one of the guys in the corridor bends down and pretends to tie his shoelace to get a more beneficial angle.
Yeah, I mean, even the camera angle is focused on their backsides as they're walking down the corridor.
Yeah.
It's a little bit, I think this scene was cut from some of the subsequent airings of the
was
episode.
it? Okay.
Yeah.
And Walsh is enjoying himself and claims that men will always be men.
Well, we can argue that, but that's his opinion.
Inside the turbo lift now.
Yeah, Mudd, or Walsh as you prefer to call him at this stage, asks whether Spock is part Vulcanian. I wonder what gave him away.
I'm not sure. I think he's his rather large hands.
Yeah, his devilish good looks, maybe.
And his weird bowl cut.
Yeah, it must have been something.
Yeah.
I don't think they used the word Vulcanian again. I think this is an early reference. And I don't know why Mudd would ask whether he's part Vulcanian and not entirely Vulcan. Anyway.
Walsh mentions to the females that there's no point in them trying to use their charms on Spock because of this Vulcanian blood or
Yeah, one of them, Eve, her name is, apologises to Spock for Mudd's comments and says he's used to buying and selling people, but she's just quickly shut down.
Yes. I mean, obviously, Walsh is worried about giving his game away. So we're in Kirk's cabin, and with a smirk, Spock introduces the commander of the cargo ship to Kirk, who initially has his back turned. And he is evidently quite taken with 3 of the 4 before being told that they are not Walsh's crew but his cargo.
I think, number one point, this sort of elfin behaviour from Spock is quickly removed from the series.
Is it?
We see it a bit in the early episodes and we don't after that so much.
Yeah.
The sort of snark in the background and smugness.
Yeah, well, before I came to this, it wasn't the type of character trait that I had thought I would be seeing.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things they maybe played with a bit and decided not to go with.
Well, it's understandable and it's fair enough. You're developing a character,
yeah,
and they're not sure exactly where he's going at this point.
As soon as the women are referred to as cargo, that brings up the question of human trafficking.
Yes, it does.
Because if they were entirely voluntarily part of this exercise, they would be passengers maybe, or guests. They certainly wouldn't be cargo.
Yeah, I think that's just a turn of phrase.
Interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe one that's giving a bit much away.
Yeah.
For a guy who's trying to keep his secrets.
Another captain's log, 1329.1. It's a recap, and we also find out that these women apparently have a strange, unexplained magnetic effect on men.
Is it just me, or were there an awful lot of captain's logs this week?
Yeah.
It seemed more than usual. Maybe I'm imagining it, but there seemed more than usual. They didn't add an awful lot.
Oh. And this unexplained magnetic effect, it's just they want to court them.
Perhaps, but there is something extra maybe.
Is there?
I don't know.
We don't find that out. This is it's confusing because we find out different things and what's actually going on, and none of it really, it's not consistent.
No, we don't know what the... Yeah, is there some sort of physical effect on these guys, or are they just... I don't even know, are they tricked? Are they...
Yeah.
Is it superficial? I don't know, because no one seems to act. They all have this sort of sense of something, but nobody stops what they're doing or doesn't do something they're meant to be doing. Mm-hmm. It's not like, I think we saw one of the earlier episodes where people were a bit distracted from their work by things that were going on, but that wasn't the case here.
No.
Everyone stuck to their duties. Kirk did what he was meant to do. Yeah. McCoy did what he was meant to do.
And if it's just that they are beautiful, then they're over... The reactions are over-exaggerated.
Yeah, you're getting these reactions like they've been away on... Like, thinking back to maybe 1966, men have been away on military vessels with no women on board. And they've been off at sea for 6 months and they're coming back and they're seeing a woman.
But that's not the case.
But that's not the case. There's women on this ship.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons why I think this is quite a weak episode.
Yeah, it's not fully explained what we're meant to understand from this.
Anyway, we're in Kirk's cabin where everyone has been shown out, leaving Walsh trying to explain himself to Kirk.
Well, how the devil am I supposed to know this is a starship, Captain? There I am with a cargo of young lovelies. A strange ship comes up alongside. Well, naturally, I did my best to evade you. And starship, Captain, or no, you exceeded your authority when you drove me and mine into a shower of asteroids.
Your name, please?
Walsh, Leo Walsh. You destroyed me ship, Captain.
Mr. Walsh, I'm convening a ship's hearing on your actions. Mr. Spock will supply you with any legal information you may need for your defense.
You're a hard-nosed one, Captain.
And you're a liar, Mr. Walsh. I think we both understand each other. Security? Escort Mr. Walsh to his quarters. Confine him there.
I like that from Kirk. I think that's pretty effective. You're a liar. Get out.
Yeah, I think he understands that that's how you have to treat someone like Walsh. You have to be quite firm with him, I think.
Yeah, you're just not taking any of his nonsense.
Yeah. If you give him an inch.
Up on the bridge, Spock is in the captain's chair shuffling Kirk's minidisc collection.
Yes.
Yeah, I think he's going to put some of his own music in there, so Kirk comes in and he puts on the wrong CD or the wrong disc.
And seeing the state that Farrell has got himself into over the women, Spock agrees with Scotty that they're in a bit of trouble.
Yeah. It's not an ideal situation. They're down to their last crystal and it's cracked, and they cannot bypass it.
Mm-hmm.
Spock, realising the gravity of the situation, so to speak, calls Kirk to the bridge.
We, however, head to I think it's a briefing room. The three women are whispering together when Walsh is brought in and greet him as Harry.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. He tells them he advises them to tell the truth, but not to submit to a medical. And they seem concerned that the crew will notice something odd about them.
Yeah, well, he is being a bit cagey because he hasn't been able to persuade security to step outside the door.
Yeah.
So there's two Enterprise officers standing inside the room. He doesn't want to give too much away, and he's very careful to correct the women when they refer to him as Mud or Harry.
Mm-hmm. He tells them not to panic. Leo will take care of things. But they seem worried and point out that they have no ship and are headed the wrong way from where they're meant to be going. Eve then calls him Harry again, and he has to remind her that, no, he is Leo Walsh.
Yeah, he garbles something about loveliness.
Yeah. Back up to the bridge where Kirk had been summoned. What happens here?
He gets the same information that we got from Scotty and Spock in the previous bridge scene.
So Kirk, at this news, says that he's going to see Walsh skinned before they arrive at a solution.
Spock is more concerned about the power situation.
Well, what's the solution?
Well, he suggests they head to Rigel XII where there's a mining operation, and he's already had the course plotted by the navigator.
Yes, just under 2 days.
Just in case you want to do that, Captain. And Kirk affirms this order.
Yeah, apparently it's a high-grade lithium.
There are a lot of close-ups in this episode. It's very stylised, and we might talk about that a bit later when we come to the director.
Okay. You might be right. Another log we have here, 1329.2, and we're told that a hearing of Walsh is taking place, and Kirk is still worried about the effect the women are having on his men.
Although it's not really seeming to affect their work, like we said.
Yeah, but when you're in a stressful situation, you don't want anything at all that could potentially
top
distract.
Efficiency. Yeah.
You don't want Farrell or Scotty pressing the wrong button when he's looking up or looking up someone's skirt.
Of course. Kirk convenes this hearing in the briefing room. They've got a lie detector set up, which I presume is as unreliable as the ones we have nowadays.
Yeah, they're a nonsense.
Maybe just to put pressure on Walsh/Mudd.
Yes, because the scrutiny he's under isn't just from the crew. This lie detector is a talking computer with it's a ridiculous voice, isn't it?
It's got a bit of an attitude as well, doesn't it? Every time he says something, it's like, no, you're wrong.
Yeah. It immediately detects that he has lied about his name. Before we go on, is this computer a recurring character?
I don't really remember seeing much of it. I think, like I said, I think it's just a tool of convenience.
Okay.
Much like a lie detector is today, when the police want something. It's not something you could really put any authority in.
No. It wouldn't stand up in court. Maybe in some states it does.
Well, it's less said about that in this podcast, but there's plenty of other podcasts we can talk about.
In any case, after initially trying to protest, he gives in and admits that he is actually who?
Harry Mudd.
Full name, please?
Harcourt Fenton Mudd.
I like his name.
That's an interesting name.
Yeah. He then gets caught pretending to be just an honest businessman when the computer displays his police record. What sort of crimes does that include? Yeah,
he's a bit of a shyster, isn't he? He's got previous for smuggling, using fake money to buy a ship, and transport of stolen goods.
Yeah, and at this, the brunette, whose name is Ruth, is worried that the computer can read their minds and will therefore discover something, but Mudd assures her that it can. I'm not sure how he would know that.
Well, because it's not reading his mind, it's just bringing up what's on his record.
True.
He's probably done more things that aren't listed.
Yeah, he's thinking, if that's all you've got, I'm happy enough with that.
Yeah, let's keep going.
Yeah.
So Kirk lists the charges against him.
Yeah, which include galaxy travel without a flight plan or ID beam. Again, are these terms that...
They're not mainstream terms, really.
Okay.
They're specific to this offence.
But Mudd tries to dismiss these charges, and also the charge that he doesn't have a master's licence, which he disputes.
Yeah, but the computer confirms it was previously revoked.
Yeah. So, he tries to offer an explanation. Leo Walsh, the real Leo Walsh, was the captain, but he died suddenly.
There was no Leo Walsh.
So, out of respect and necessity, he had no choice but to take on this voyage himself with the three women.
Yeah, he's out here wiving settlers.
Now, as he's rambling, the women appear to be trying quite successfully to charm McCoy and Scotty.
Yeah, perhaps they think it'll help with their case.
Yeah, but Kirk, to his credit, he keeps up his interrogation, and he, at this point, this is where he asks about, his Mudd's real purpose, and as you mentioned, it's the old wife settling.
Yeah, I like this next part. So he asks the computer to provide data on the women or any unusual readings, and it doesn't have anything, but it reports that the men in the panel are a bit hot and bothered, so Kirk has Spock strike that from the record.
Yeah, I quite like that shot as well. The camera pans across them all, shifting and loosening their collar, etc. Yeah,
they're a little bit like that. Who's that prosecutor guy that you always saw sweating in court on the TV show? Ken, Making a Murderer.
Oh yes, Ken the pervert.
Yeah, well, him. They looked a bit sweaty like him.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
Can I ask, so we've got the Enterprise, which is a government vessel doing government business. Is that right?
Well, you say government, it's
an official,
yeah.
It's not,
what
I'm saying is the Enterprise is not just a private venture.
No.
So we also have lots of other, we're at a stage now where just normal businesses and individuals and private enterprises can fly around and do their thing.
There are certain things that can be tolerated, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, the Federation's a bit authoritarian at times.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, certain ventures are permitted.
Okay.
Getting back to the hearing, Kirk wants to know whether these women were voluntarily part of this expedition.
Yes, and this Mudd introduces Ruth, Magda, and a pleading Eve, who accuses Kirk of denying them a chance of getting a husband and gawping at them.
Well, fair enough.
Probably accurate.
Kirk notes that there's no charges against these women. They're not being accused of anything, and puts the case against Mudd, asking him if he has a defence, which he does not.
No, only what he's already offered.
Which wasn't a defence.
It wasn't. Well, he was just claiming that he was doing nothing wrong.
Yeah. Kirk draws the matter to conclusion, saying that Mudd will be handed to the legal authorities.
ASAP.
At which point...
Yeah, Kirk is grabbed by Eve, and she demands to know what will become of them. I suppose they're in quite a vulnerable position.
Yeah, he's not happy with being touched. He wants her to back off, and I think the last crystal fails at this moment.
Yeah, at this point, that's what happens. Everything is now running off the Duracell.
Yes. So Kirk's trying to get away from Eve, who's pestering him, and he's giving orders. I think he gives Spock some orders about contacting Rigel XII, unfortunately within the earshot of Mr. Harry Mudd.
And being the entrepreneur that he is, he sees this as a great opportunity. There are some rich, lonely miners who will surely be in the market for some beautiful wives and will be able to afford them a lifestyle and position that they had not previously dreamt of. This must have been an upgrade to their initial destination.
Sounds like it.
And for some reason, Mudd thinks that it means he's going to be running the Enterprise shortly.
I don't think that makes any sense at all, unless Kirk's going into the private security business.
Yeah.
But she's not.
Another log, 1330.1. They are now 14 hours from Rigel 12, and we also have an episode recap.
Yeah. Why are these women having this unspecified effect?
Where do we head to?
Sick bay.
We do. McCoy dismisses Connors as soon as Ruth enters and flirts with him, but he is a little confused as to some skewed readings.
Well, yeah, she's not being tested for anything because, if you remember, she was told not to submit to any medical examinations, but as she walks past McCoy's little scanner, we've seen this in previous episodes. I think we saw Gary Mitchell set it to 0 for himself, and there's various other times with, I think, the evil Kirk as well. It starts making random bleeping noises.
Now, this, again, is something that's confusing, because either they have some sort of power, or they don't, and it's all in the mind, and it's all a case of confidence.
Yeah.
So why is this machine going off? The machine isn't attracted to these women.
It's not even scanning her directly, and it's making so something's off about her.
So unless, and again we're skipping forward to it, but unless something, the thing that they've taken causes alterations in their biology, lifts up their heart rate or something.
It could do.
Their brain waves get altered by it.
Yeah, maybe it's like some kind of steroid, hypersteroid that just would show up on a test. But then why is it showing? Maybe it's producing readings that are so out of the normal that they show up even at a distance.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a fudge, that.
Mm-hmm. She thinks the place is fascinating and asks why he wants her to pass by the scanner again, because after this reading, he asked her to do that. But she queries if it's for an examination. Now,
because she's been told not to get examined.
Yeah, but the response to this is a bit dubious.
It's a bit weird.
He says that no, he wouldn't trust himself to do it. What do you mean trust yourself? You couldn't examine her in case you done something inappropriate?
I don't understand. I think the impression I got was that he couldn't trust himself to interpret the readings correctly, but I don't know. Maybe he's just being coy. I don't know.
Anyway, she agrees to pose beside the system again, and it
bleeps again, yeah.
It does, yeah. And at this point, she strokes his face and asks about the health of the miners on Rigel XII, but seems surprised.
Who seems surprised?
Ruth, but not unhappy.
Okay. Yes, she learns that there's 3 of them, conveniently.
Yeah. I think I would be unhappy about that. If you're going down there, you want your pick, don't you? If you think there's only 3, you're not got much of a choice. You get down there and there's 100 guys.
Yeah, but if there's 3, then they'll all be very wealthy, because they're only splitting the profits from the mine 3 ways.
True, but you could have an auction, effectively. Like, you can pick the richest guy if that's what you're after.
Yeah, you could do.
Now you've got to take what you can get, whatever's there.
Well, fingers crossed for them then.
In any case, before she leaves, McCoy, the old romantic, asks her if she is wearing an unusual perfume. That's what we heard at the top of the podcast.
We did.
Are you wearing something radioactive?
It's not the most romantic of lines, is it?
Where do we go?
Kirk's quarters again, where we find, not for the first time, a woman waiting for him when he returns.
Yeah, she's a bit out of order here, I would have said.
She's lying on his bed.
Yeah. He pretends that he's unhappy about this.
Well, yes, he or at least the director, puts this grid between them, which I think is a metaphor for the captain being unable to engage with women while he's working.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What's her excuse for being there?
She doesn't really have a good excuse, does she?
She's hiding from all the men.
Oh yes, they're all harassing her and she doesn't like it, but she's using that as a sort of a way to flirt with Kirk.
He unconvincingly claims that he'll have a word with him. I don't think he will.
No, he has no intention of having a word with him, although he is trying to resist her advances here. You can see him backing away very slightly without wanting to appear to be backing down.
And he goes on to blame her and the other women in defence of his men before she accepts that they are probably lonely. Something she can understand. Yeah, but they're not lonely. Oh, they might be.
Yeah, they might be, but that's not relevant, really. Anyhow, she pushes a bit further, but Kirk backs off, and Eve basically breaks off her attempts.
Yeah, I mean, I think she tries to use her feminine charms by flattering him, much like we saw Ruth do with McCoy.
Yeah.
And I think she accepts, or she tells him that she understands it must be hard for him to be the captain and a paragon of virtue.
Yeah, they both agree they don't know any people who are actually paragons.
No. And she goes to kiss him, almost forcing Kirk at this point.
Yep, but he, as I say, backs off. He doesn't allow her to complete that, and she realises that she shouldn't be doing this.
No, and says that she can't go ahead with this. It doesn't matter what Mudd says. So this is a bit of a twist.
Well, you would think that Kirk would pick up on that.
Yeah.
He doesn't really. At least we don't see him doing anything.
No. She moans that she hates the whole thing and then abruptly storms out, leaving Kirk in the need of a cold shower.
Down in Mudd's quarters.
His cell now.
Is it a cell?
Yeah, effectively it is.
He's been confined to quarters, so it's his quarters.
Yeah, I mean, it's
which
not,
is also a cell.
yeah, if you're being forced in there by an armed guard, it's turned into a cell, isn't it?
Yeah, you could say that. But it's a bit more luxurious than an actual cell. Magda has got the music going for her.
Yep, she enters with a seductive score.
Security stumbles aside as she enters the room, and she hears Ruth reporting to Mudd what she learned from McCoy.
She does, and she's got news of her own.
Yeah, she's got the names
Of
the miners.
which are
I know Childress.
Childress, Gossett, and Benton.
That's right.
Is it? Or Bennett?
Something like that. I know it's Benton, I think.
Yeah, Benton. Gossett and Benton. Is that not a United Colours of Gossett and Wonderbras? I don't know. Anyway, let's move on.
I think Benton's a region of Newcastle.
Is it?
I don't know.
Mudd is delighted. They have been alone on the planet for 3 years, the miners that is, and there is now a woman for each of them.
Ideal, he'll get the price that he wants.
Yep. Not only that, but there are those lithium crystals down there that are worth many, many times the value of gold or diamonds. So he's in a win-win situation.
He is, but Eve returns to bring the mood down a little bit.
Is it Eve or is it Ruth?
Now, Eve comes back. Well, Ruth and Magda have got their concerns about how they're going to reach the miners, but
Yeah, 'cause-
Eve returns from her visit with Kirk.
What does she do or what does she say?
She just brings the mood down generally by saying she hates Harry and doesn't like the ideas that he has and doesn't really like him at all, generally.
Yeah, but he tells her that he is not surprised as he has seen her notice Kirk. I'm not sure if she's suggesting that she's fallen for Kirk.
Yeah, or at least is attracted to Kirk because he's in charge. But anyway, she's feeling bad.
Yeah, quite unwell, and claiming that it must be near the time. Whatever that means.
Turn into a pumpkin, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Up on the bridge, Kirk finally notices one of his men failing in his performance.
Yeah, he's not happy. Farrell is so distracted that his mind is not on the job, and he has to be told twice to set the correct orbit for Rigel XII.
There's a relief, at least, that he doesn't start singing old Irish folk songs.
And at this point, Kirk has a quiet word, man to man, with McCoy.
Ridiculous. What are we running here? Did you examine them? Did you examine Eve? She refused. Oh, come on, you're the doctor. What is it? Is it that we're tired and they're beautiful? And they are incredibly beautiful.
Are they, Jim? Are they actually more lovely, pound for pound, measurement for measurement, than any other women you've known? Or is it that they just, well, act beautiful? No, strike that, strike that.
What are they, Bones?
You mean, are they alien illusions, that sort of thing?
I asked you first.
No. An alien smart enough to pull this would be smart enough to keep my medical scanner from going bleep.
I don't follow you.
I don't either.
That was a fun clip, I thought. I liked that. It's a bit silly.
Well, this is the thing. So these two guys think they might be under the influence of something artificial, and they think their behaviour's affected. Spock, who is unaffected, is sitting there watching them, not contributing, not offering any guidance or support.
No, he's curious and amused, I think.
Yeah, he's quite happy. I get the feeling that Spock thinks there's not really a problem here, and he's just going to let these guys muddle along and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's a study of the human condition again. Big breakthrough for Mr. Harry Mudd.
Yeah, we're down in his room. What happens?
He now has a communicator that Magda has acquired from him, presumably by seducing a crew member and nicking it off him.
Yeah, and we see that Eve, she's staring in a near catatonic state.
She's still not happy.
Not at all. Back up to the bridge.
Well, before they go back up, Mudd uses the communicator. He contacts the miners.
He does. What does he say?
Well, they say come in Enterprise, and he says it's not exactly the Enterprise.
Not exactly. Down in the bridge. Or up in the bridge, I don't know.
Who knows? Well, yeah, up on the bridge.
Okay.
They enter orbit of Rigel XII, and Kirk instructs Uhura to make arrangements for the miners' representatives to beam up for a meeting.
And apparently they've got enough power to orbit for about 3 days.
That's plenty of time.
Seems to be, yeah. Back down to Mud's room. Things have taken a drastic turn as we see that the women now have removed their makeup.
And one of them messed their hair.
Yeah. See, this is like, I don't know, it was a thing a few years ago where, maybe it is still today, but women were posting like no makeup days.
Yeah.
Or before and after.
That you were horrified by that, quite uncharacteristically.
I was not horrified at all.
You vomited.
I did not. I was in no way shocked with this con job.
No,
it's almost as if, what, you're telling me you're going to look not as attractive when you take off your extensions, your fake eyebrows, your fake eyelashes, your blusher, your concealer, your foundation, your lipstick.
But I think the point is that they do still look as attractive when they don't have their makeup
No,
on.
they don't. No, they don't.
Oh.
They certainly do not.
The beauty is on the inside.
Yeah, no, they certainly do not, and they've been aged. They've had lots of.
Oh, these women! I thought you meant the ones on Facebook.
I'm talking the ones on Facebook.
The purpose of the no makeup day is to show that you don't need makeup to be beautiful.
Yeah, well, do you know what? I'm not going to get all political, but that's complete and utter nonsense, because if that was the case, they wouldn't be spending an absolute fortune on putting makeup on it every single day.
It's the con job of the cosmetics industry to trick them into thinking they need all these things.
No, I've seen absolutely some sites.
Anyhow, we don't even agree on what happens to these women. You think they're getting older.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're getting older.
Oh, they're definitely getting older.
I don't think they're getting older.
Of course they're getting older.
I think they're just they're losing their glamour or their sheen.
Not at all. They're horrendous looking like this. There's makeup, mass amount of prosthetics been put on them to make them look absolutely. They're aged. They've got lots of wrinkles all over their face.
Well, let's see. Maybe some of the listeners will chip in on this, because I think they're just meant to look less attractive and not older, and you think they're meant to look aged.
Oh, I think they look an awful lot older. Yeah, I think there's 20. I think there's 20 years on them.
If that's the case, then why does Harry Mudd not mention reducing their age as one of the effects of the medicine when they talk about the effects of this?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because it's a badly written episode.
You're blaming the writing, okay?
Right, I'm saying it's inconsistent. This entire thing. Yeah, I think they've quite clearly been aged.
There's no reference in the script at any point. I've looked into this about age, youth, or agedness.
I'm not using the script. I'm using my eyes. When you see them transformed, they are noticeably older. They've got wrinkles on they're really wrinkled and haggard looking.
I think those are scars.
Not scars at all. How would he get scars from? Why would Harry Mudd be using scarred women?
Because he's got this magical drug.
3 scarred women. And
because if the women were beautiful or consider themselves to be beautiful without this drug, then they wouldn't be susceptible to whatever he's sold them in terms of a life that they can have.
They're quite clearly, the part of this drug is an anti-aging element to it.
Okay, if you think so, I don't agree. But anyway, regardless, Harry hunts his room and finds this drug that he gives to the 3 women, and both Magda and Ruth are eager to take it, and Eve's a little more hesitant.
But they eventually do take it.
She does eventually, but Mudd has to explain to her, not explain, because that's probably not the right word, not how she takes it, but Mudd has a talk to her about how maybe she's infatuated with Kirk, but he's in love with his ship, and there's nothing she can do to change that, so she might as well just get on with things.
Mm-hmm. So after a while, we see that the restoration has worked on the other 2, but Eve she's still fingering her own pill, which now sparkles for some reason as she clasps it around her hand. What's all that about?
Well, I think it's just pointing out that it's a performance enhancing or beauty enhancing substance.
Okay.
It's a bit of television magic.
We are down to the briefing room or across.
I thought it was Kirk's quarters. Doesn't really matter. Either way, Spock is there reflecting on the beauty of the destroyed lithium crystal. Is this meant to be an analogy for the women, that despite the fact that they're destroyed in some way, they're still beautiful? I don't know.
I think it might be.
Was that a stretch?
I think it's a stretch. I think you're maybe giving the writers
too much credit.
Yeah.
Childress and Gossett, 2 of the miners, they show up from Rigel XII to break up this conversation.
Yeah.
Kirk explains to them that he knows they have the crystals that he needs, and he is authorised by the Federation to pay, or by Starfleet to pay, an equitable price.
Yeah, but they get right down to business as well. They're not interested in the money, or they might not be interested. They might want to swap.
Yeah, they want the women and they want Mudd released. But for first things, apart from Mudd's release, the women aren't Kirk's to give.
No.
So he laughs them off. He's not entertaining this notion.
Yeah.
And even if they were his prisoners or they were in his control, they're not assets in his view. He doesn't view them as something of value to be traded for goods.
Yeah, and on top of this, they also say that they have arranged for the charges to be dropped against Mudd.
Well, yeah, they've agreed that is something they will insist on as part of the negotiation, yeah. They've spoken to Mudd, and he said, look, you can have these women, but you need to get the charges dropped against me.
Yeah, but who's going to
Kirk's going to have to drop the charges, or otherwise his ship's going to blow up because it's going to crash into the planet.
Yeah.
And they feel like they've got all the leverage. But Kirk thinks that that's not the case, because even though they've warned him that he won't find the crystals if he doesn't deal, he says that if they allow the Enterprise to be destroyed, essentially, they're going to have some trouble, because there's things that they'll also need: cargo runs, medical help, protection from starships. They're going to lose out on those things.
They're in a pretty vulnerable and lonely planet themselves.
Yeah, there's 3 of them. What are they going to do if an aggressive invader comes along, Klingons or whatever else?
The standoff is broken as the women are ushered in, but this only confirms what Childress wants, and he has his position strengthened as the Enterprise switches to battery saving mode.
Yes, essentially they've put on that little toggle that says don't use full brightness and turn the lights off after 3 seconds of non-use.
Mudd then makes Kirk's position clear. He's going to do a deal. He's no other choice.
Yeah, the situation is quite stark, because they've entered orbit, they don't have the power to get out of orbit, and they also don't have the power to maintain the orbit after a few days. So the ship is going to be destroyed in the atmosphere if they don't get these crystals one way or another.
So I'm thinking it's a sort of a Mexican standoff to an extent. But
racist.
If Kirk plays his hand, he says, okay, we'll wait here for 3 days. So they've got Childress and Goss or whoever it is on board with Mudd. So
you're on our ship. If it gets destroyed, you're also destroyed.
Exactly, yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, because you assume the miners don't have their own transporter facilities. Yeah, he could have pushed it, but he's not that kind of man. At least not in this episode.
We have another log where Kirk explains that they are transporting down to get the crystals, but expect trouble from the miners.
Yeah, did you take the implication then that they're just going to go and take the crystals?
Yeah, well...
For a second, until you see they've taken the women to the planet with them.
Yeah, we arrive in Rigel XII. Kirk, Spock and Mudd land. Now, here's a question. When you transport somewhere, do you know exactly where you're landing? So let me give you an example of Back to the Future.
Okay.
When you time travel in the car, the DeLorean, you stay in the same geographical place, but you go back in time, so that in the third one, they go from the car park and they've been chased by Native Americans. Or in the first one, they hit a barn, right? Yeah. So do they know when they're going down somewhere?
Okay.
That they're going to, what if they landed? What if they say, oh, we'll beam down to this planet and
it's a wall?
It's a wall or into a pit of lava.
Yeah. So part of the transport, the further they go through Star Trek, the more specific they can be about this. So at the moment, yes, they can target a specific area, and the transporter will make sure it's a clear area. But I think the further on you go, when you get to Next Generation and so on, you can target within a ship. Like, you can go from a corridor to another corridor. They wouldn't do that at this stage here because, like you say, you don't want to be beamed in halfway into a wall or a floor or something.
Yeah, okay. Inside the base, we see that Childress and the women are already there, and there's a little soiree taking place.
It's clear that Kirk has conceded. He's lost the standoff.
Yeah, he's got to park his ego and admit to Childress that he's won. And he asks, almost pleads for the crystals, but...
Yeah, Childress is a bit of a pain here. He's like, no, you're not. I'm busy. I'm having a party.
He's not a very gracious victor.
So he's not carrying out his end of the bargain.
No, well...
I mean, he will later, presumably, but yeah.
I think he's just enjoying exerting a little bit of power over Kirk. Having his fun while he can. Kirk then snaps at Spock. It reminds him that they're running out of time. And at this point, Childress seems to be doing a great job of putting Eve off living with him.
Yeah, well, this is the point where the episode changes focus.
Yeah.
So up until now, it's been Kirk running this case against Mudd running his little scam, and Kirk negotiating with Childress. But now Childress essentially becomes the primary moving piece.
Mm-hmm.
So we're at his party and he is trying to basically suss out these women.
Yeah, it explains about the harsh conditions. So I'm trying to work out his logic or his thinking. Does he appreciate that he has to live here with them, so he is actually going to be honest and open to see if they're up to...
Yeah, I think he's trying to work out is, do I want to do this deal or would I rather take money or payment from Kirk? So if I don't like these women, if we don't think this is going to work out, we'll just take the money.
Yeah.
So Eve is watching out the window and he goes over and he's fairly pleasant to her, talks about the magnetic storms, and he starts to have a bit of a problem though when she won't dance with him. Magda, of course, is dancing with her chosen minor and...
a big caveman looking character, yeah.
And Eve gives the excuse that the dust is bothering her, which is a big warning flag to Childress.
Yeah. He's unhappy. He goes over and grabs Ruth from Gossett, I think it is, who in turn then tries to take Magda from the caveman.
Yes, but he's not having it.
No, he's just...
You're not cutting in on me.
And an old school style Western saloon fight sort of breaks out.
Well, this whole episode's got a touch of the Westerns about it, doesn't it?
I say the
Frontier Wives or whatever.
Of course. I mean, Star Trek, I think famously Star Wars was described as a space Western.
Yeah, and I think Roddenberry sold Star Trek to the network as Wagon Train to the Stars, although it's not really Wagon Train. I think people have said there's other Westerns that are more similar.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, it's the frontier spirit.
Yeah.
Anyway, as this fight is going on, it allows Eve to run to the door and she screams about having a raffle in which she's the losing prize of the loot.
Yeah, she thinks they're all fighting to not have to go dance with her or be with her.
Yeah, and she storms out into the sandstorm.
Childress shouts after her that she'll be killed because of the strength of the storm.
Yeah, I think Kirk, he's about to follow her and he's warned that he'll die out there.
So he tells Childress to get the crystals ready. He's ready to get Eve.
Yeah, quite heroically, he'll go out and save the day.
We then get a shot out on the planet's surface where Eve is struggling with this sandstorm and quite clearly has chosen the wrong shoes.
Yes. And we see that Childress is also out on the search.
Yes, he's manfully or heroically, or I don't even know what the word would be. Selfishly, I don't know what.
Not sure if it's selfish. It'd be quite easy.
He certainly wants to try and find her and save her.
But for what? Yeah, he wants to save her
why?
for why? Yeah, for his benefit, I'd imagine.
Kirk gives up on the search, and we see him back on the ship where he said, "Enough of that sand for me. Let's just search using our scanners."
Yeah, I think that's through a captain's log.
Yeah, another captain's log.
Yeah.
Spock on the bridge says they're struggling to carry out this scan because the air's ionized due to the magnetic storm.
Yeah, and the search has been going on for over 3 hours already.
And Scotty's like, are we really wasting our batteries on this nonsense?
Yeah, he's in a hard position.
Yeah, because he's tasked with keeping the ship going until they get the new crystals. Kirk's quite short with Scotty at this point.
I think he is quite sensitive about this failure on his part to...
We get a lot of this sort of pricked egos in this episode. It's not just Kirk. He's not the first and he's not the last to show a bit of defensiveness. When
his manhood's been challenged. He's used to floating around the universe or the galaxy, being in charge and people doing what he wants, and now his crew have seen that someone is basically...
You wonder maybe with these women kicking around if there's maybe a bit of a testosterone overflow.
Quite possibly, yeah.
Kirk apologises though for nipping at Scotty, and after they hear that Childress has gone out to look for Eve and they've not been heard from, Scotty reports that there's 5 hours of power left.
Back down on Rigel 12, Childress carries the unconscious Eve back to shelter and goes for a little lie down himself.
In his hut, he puts her on the bed and he lies on a bench, very chivalrous.
Mm-hmm. Another log. Yeah. There's 43 minutes of power left and the search is now 7.5 hours old. We've
skipped ahead. Yeah, they've done nothing for 4 hours and now the storms are easing off.
Yeah. Up on the bridge, systems have picked up a signal from Childress' quarters.
He's put the oven on.
He has, and so Kirk tells Spock to have Mudd meet him in the transporter room. They're obviously going for a visit.
Kirk thinks this is the end game.
Yeah.
Down in Childress' shack, he wakes to find Eve cooking, having tidied the place up.
Yeah, she has very quickly become domesticated.
And once again, his ego is pricked. He feels challenged and acts out defensively.
Yeah, she said that she, while she was asleep, ate some food, so she's doing some chores to as
It's
payment.
maybe just the values that she's been brought up with. But he's ungrateful for the work she's done, and he's ungrateful for the food that she's cooked. And despite it being clear on his face that he enjoys the food, he makes out that it's not very good.
Yeah, well, he is used to... I suppose, in fairness, he's been living down there for 3 years and he's quite capable of looking after himself. Maybe not to the extent that Eve thinks is good enough, but he doesn't need a woman to look after himself, and perhaps he is feeling that.
Yeah. So she quite correctly recognises his wounded ego and calls it out, and you can see he's taking her contributions as an attack on the way that he lives by himself.
And she's shown that she's a bit of initiative herself because, or thinking outside the box. She mentioned that some of the plates and the cutlery, the dishes were
not as clean as they could be.
No, and he says, well, how else am I going to clean them? She comes up with the solution of hanging them outside in the sand to effectively sandblast them clean.
So we get a bit of a thaw here where he takes her up on this. He doesn't shut her down. He goes out and he hangs out the pans. But when he comes back in, she's playing a card game, doesn't accept his suggestion because he's not understood the rules of the game, and his ego, once again pricked, fragile as it is, sends him right back on the defensive, and he insults her appearance, and she says she just slumped because she's tired of it.
Yeah, well, she's now markedly less alluring than when she's on the pills.
Well, she's just taken her eyeshadow off, I think.
Ruffled up her hair.
Yeah. He gets angry and he starts getting right up in her face, shouting. I mean, quite aggressively, sort of, textbook angry husband style.
Yeah, and he says that he's got enough money to buy someone better.
Quite disgusting behaviour, quite frankly.
Yeah, and he's leaning towards her, being aggressive, just as Kirk and Mudd enter. I think he...
Yeah, and he backs off going, I didn't touch her. Basically, like, it may have looked like I've just thumped her, but I haven't yet.
No, that's just the state of her face off the pills.
And he then is very rude about her to Kirk and Mudd. He talks about how she's been overly grateful and whatever else.
So Kirk gets to the point and tells Mudd to explain to Childress what has been going on.
Ah, yes. Well?
The Venus drugs, Harry.
Venus drug? I've heard of it, but it's not just one of those stories?
Oh, it exists. Illegally.
Well, actually, you see, it's a relatively harmless drug.
Harmless?
Yeah, well, what it does is give you more of whatever you have. Well, with men, it makes them more muscular. Women, rounder. Men, more aggressive. Women, more feminine, and...
He gave it to the women before you met them.
Does that mean the others... they really look like she does?
Mr. Childress,
Is that what it means?
Yes, that's what it means.
What happened to my partners?
They've left for their quarters during the storm, Childress. They're married. Subspace radio marriage. It was a fraud. They can get out of it.
if they want to.
Why?
Well, you can't condemn the women.
I can. Man goes out, fights, almost dies. We all almost died. We should have, but we didn't. Now that we've got the good life in our hands, you bring us women for wives and...
You don't want wives. You want this. This is what you want, Mr. Childress. And I hope you remember it and dream about it, because you can't have it. It's not real.
Yeah, so that clip there is one of the reasons why... What Mudd says... Now, I'm assuming Mudd is just lying.
I think if, at the very least he's underplaying or distorting what this medicine
because,
does.
As we've discussed, I think these pills are anti-aging. It doesn't mention it there, but of course, he is trying to effectively do a deal here and sell or have the minors pay for these women. So he's not going to say, do you know what? They're actually a lot older, and if you run out of pills, then you've not got this young, beautiful woman. You've got someone who's 20 years older and not quite as good looking. So he's got to just... So he's trying to underplay what the pills actually do. Oh yeah, it just gives you a little bit more. It gives you a little bit more curves. No, it doesn't. It entirely changes. It changes your how old you look, and your. It's not just a little bit of an enhancement, and that's the point.
But if it changes your age, then how come in a moment Eve, without the pill, looks like she did when she was taking the pill?
Yeah, because it's nonsense. That's what I'm saying. This is a bad episode because it doesn't make any sense.
This doesn't add up.
No,
and Kirk's little speech is ridiculous. And I know, again, that it's trying to be progressive.
Yeah.
This idea that, oh, yes, women just need a bit of confidence. It's mansplaining it to her.
Yeah, but again, the confidence doesn't work. We'll get to that. But I mean, you can be confident, but probably the most confident person on the planet is Donald Trump, from what he says about how good he is at this and an expert at that. And
I think he's blustering to cover insecurities.
He's certainly blustering, yeah. But he's if that was the case anyway, the confidence hasn't made him any more attractive.
Attractive to all the ones that voted for him.
Yeah, but not physically attractive.
Maybe.
Well, in saying that, he can pull the women, can't he? I'm not sure if that's anything to do with his...
Exactly.
Yeah, that might also have to do with his bank balance, or his supposed bank balance.
Like Childress's attractiveness to women.
Yes.
This, which isn't even discussed in this episode, whether the women like the men. They don't really seem to have any sort of input into that.
Yeah.
It's like, they're willing to take us, great.
Yeah, but they didn't care. That was the whole point. They were going
to want to marry to anybody.
Yeah, because they were lonely.
Childress agrees to hand over the crystals anyway at this point, but says that after Eve's speech, which she gives, and Kirk's mansplaining, he's going to keep her, which is okay. But Kirk at least does check with Eve that that's what she wants.
Yeah, and in fairness to Kirk, he does do that.
Eve confirming that she accepts Kirk's love is in orbit, essentially. Yeah. He loves the ship, so he can go back to that, and she'll just make do with Childress. And fair enough. Kirk and Spock and Mudd leave. Mudd wants to be left behind, but Kirk says, I'm not prepared to do that, but when your trial comes up, I will appear as a character witness.
If he thinks that will...
If he thinks it'll help. I don't think he thinks it'll help.
No, it won't. So there has been this bit of back and forth between him and Mudd, and I understand that he reappears a few times in the future, so they're obviously trying to... He's not an out-and-out villain that you're meant to find him, I suppose, a bit of a charming rogue.
Yeah, not just the future, past as well. Star Trek Discovery set before this, he appears in that too.
Okay. Must have been a fan favourite.
Well, I don't know. I don't know how popular it was, because I seem to recall when they said they were bringing him back for Discovery that folk were like, really? Mm-hmm. That guy? The space pimp? Up on the bridge, yes. Spock sums it up nicely for you.
He does. He says that he's just happy that the annoying emotional episode is over.
Is that how you feel? Yeah.
Yeah, I took that note myself, yeah.
They break orbit and they leave in the traditional way. And that's us.
Yeah, it is. So, yeah, I didn't like it, really.
I didn't think the women were well written. My thinking was that although you could argue they had agency, mm-hmm. because they were able to choose their fate for themselves, mm-hmm. they do seem a bit one-dimensional, lacking in ambition. You know, even Eve, the one who's thoughtful and has her wits about her a little bit, she seemed to be content to live life on a planet with only 6 people there, married to a boor with anger management issues, as long as he wants her. It's not really selling the dream, is it? It's not something that women could watch and say, oh yeah,
no,
in the future life's going to be great.
And as you mentioned, this is in a show, in a universe where there are obviously women in positions of authority and power, and we've got more positive role models. Sure, yeah. But again, as I also said at the start, there are still people who are not interested in that, and they're quite happy to be married and stay at home and have a family.
That's true, but they don't make for interesting science fiction.
No
subjects. No offence to them, live their life, be happy, but mm-hmm. don't make me watch TV shows about it.
Yeah, but there are plenty of TV shows like that.
Yeah. Anyway,
yeah.
As well as being considered, like we said, for the second pilot, when we did Where No Man Has Gone Before, this was also a story that was considered for being made as the first pilot. But again, fair to say, good decision to go in a different direction.
Yeah. You got some trivia for us this week, Ian, I take it?
I do. Original air date, 13th of October 1966. And Mudd's Women was directed by Harvey Hart.
I recognise that name. You do.
So it's his only work for Star Trek in large part because the producers were not happy with his methods here. The shots that he set up, and we talked about this during the episode, they required a lot of time. So they were late getting the show done. They were trying to get 20-odd episodes done on a schedule and to budget.
Too much of an artist.
Too much going on there. And also he was camera cutting, which I think is an industry term for not giving the producers enough options to hack things up a bit, forcing his vision on them.
Yeah, I think that might mean that you do a lot of the cutting, editing in camera. So
you only take the shots that you want. Yeah. So the producers weren't given much to work with. They had to basically go with what he set up. And he is, of course, as you've maybe hinted there, our big Columbo connection for the week. I know people love our Columbo connections.
3 episodes, I believe.
4.
4? Ah,
Yes,
okay, remind
and
me.
some favourites as well. So, By Dawn's Early Light, the first Patrick McGoohan episode. Deadly State of Mind with
George Hamilton.
Forgotten Lady.
Oh, with one of the most despicable killers in the run.
Absolutely. And one of my all-time favourites, certainly my top 3 Columbos, Now You See Him.
With the great Jack Cassidy.
Absolutely. All well-regarded episodes, I think.
Very well. Yeah, that's a fair CV you've got there.
Forgotten Lady, the one episode where the killer gets off with it as well. Mm-hmm. For folk who, spoiler, for folk who are going back to Columbo.
Sort of got off with it. She gets her comeuppance anyway.
In some ways. He also directed episodes of the Alfred Hitchcock Hour, the Bill Cosby Show, and Spencer for Hire.
I like the Spencer books, mentioned that before.
Yeah.
Read them all.
And amongst other things. He died in 1989. He was only 61.
How did he die? Is that age? Some sort of illness?
Death, yeah.
Okay.
Death
yeah,
became
definitely.
him.
Generally gets you.
The episode was written by Stephen Candell, who is not dead. He worked with Gene Roddenberry on this story initially and then wrote up the script himself. It's the first of his 2 original series episodes. You can maybe guess the second one also involves Harry Mudd. He also wrote 2 episodes for the animated series, one of which involved Harry Mudd. And among other shows, he contributed a number of episodes to the 60s Batman series, Mission Impossible, I think both the initial and the subsequent series of Mission Impossible. And later he did quite a lot of episodes of MacGyver.
Ah, good show.
Another one that you enjoyed. I just like the one with the ants.
Yes, that was arachnophobia type. Was it ants or spiders?
It was red ants.
Was it?
And there was like a river of them and the guy fell
Yeah.
and all that was left with his hat. It's like we don't eat hats.
Yeah.
Ants, we just eat people. Roger C. Carmel played Harry Mudd, would later reprise the role in another episode of the original series and in the animated series, and he was lined up, rumours have it, to do so in the Next Generation, but died before that could happen in 1986 at the age of 54.
Whoa. Say again?
In 1986, 20 years after this, at the age of 54.
So he was only about 34 when...
Maybe even 33.
No.
So he was 6 years younger than I am now.
What?
About 10 years younger than you.
No, it's not that. Yeah.
when he made this episode.
Wow. If you told me he was in his 50s at this point, I would have accepted that, no problem.
Absolutely.
He didn't take very good care of himself, did he?
Well, no. And, it's cause of death. It was rumoured at the time to be death by suicide, but the official cause of death was a heart disease. He appeared in a wide range of great TV shows, not as a regular, but guesting. So he was in Batman, he was in Macmillan and Wife, The Munsters, Man from U.N.C.L.E., he was in Laverne and Shirley, and Heart to Heart. And towards the end of his life, he voiced Cyclonus in the 1986, the most popular Transformers cartoon series, and the animated Transformers movie, still by far the best Transformers movie.
In your opinion?
No, and anyone who's seen the animated one and the live action ones would tell you the animated one is the best.
I've not seen any of them.
Just don't bother with the Michael Bay ones.
Oh no, Michael Bay, yeah. I won't bother with that.
Karen Steele, Susan Denberg and Maggie Threat played Mudd's women. Steele was Eve. She also appeared in shows like Rawhide, Bonanza and Flipper before her early death in 1988 from cancer at the age of 56. Denberg played Magda. She was born in occupied Poland during World War II, grew up in Austria and moved to America in the 60s. Her only other real significant role was as Frankenstein's monster Christina in the 1967 Hammer horror movie Frankenstein Created Woman.
Apparently she was in Playboy.
Yeah, I'm told that it appears as a piece of trivia on IMDb, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Threat was Ruth, the dark-haired woman. She also appeared in shows like The Wild West and I Dreamed of Jeannie. The miners were played by Jean Dynarski, John Cowell and Shaman Glass.
Anything interesting there?
Well, Dynarski was Childress. He went on to appear in one other episode of the original series and one episode of The Next Generation.
As the same character?
No. As well as showing up in programmes like Batman, The A-Team and Seinfeld. He did a bit more work, I think, as he got older. I know he looks quite old in this episode, but as he actually got older, he got more sort of character roles. Or is getting more character roles. He's still alive. Cowell...
Still acting?
Yeah. I think so, yeah. Cowell played Herm Gossett. He also appeared in shows like Mannix and Gunsmoke. Glass was Benton. He showed up in Deliverance, Blazing Saddles and Buck Rogers in the 25th Century. Cowell died in 2003 at the age of 75 and Glass died at the age of 90 in 2016. little bit of trivia. There was a scene filmed that didn't make the final cut where Mudd attempts to persuade Uhura to take the Venus drug, which Roger Carmel liked. He thought it fit the ethos of the show. Another one to maybe file away for later, a writer called Harlan Ellison, whose name will be familiar to sci-fi fans and to Star Trek fans. He was apparently on set while this episode was being filmed, to the annoyance of the producers. It might not mean too much right now, but store that one away for later reference.
Okay. Jimmy Ellison.
Harlan Ellison. The episode...
Harlem Globetrotters.
This episode is the first of 3 to feature the voice of legendary Star Trek producer Bob Justman as an unseen character on communications. International titles, to wrap up.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a lot of variants this week, so a lot of them are just Mudd's women and the women of Mudd.
Dirty women.
The French might have been struggling for a good translation of his name because they go with Trois femmes dans un vaisseau, 3 women on a ship. The Italian translators went with Il filtro di Venere, the Venus filter. And the Japanese writers were obviously working along similar lines. They went with Kyofu no Binasu, Frightful Venus.
Nah, that's poor.
Yeah, better luck next week, eh?
Hope so. What have we got next week?
The 7th episode of Season 1, What Are Little Girls Made Of? Sinew, cartilage, bone, flesh, blood, oxygen.
And you should know you've got a number of them buried in your back garden.
Who are you talking to?
Until then.
Yeah, until then, catch us on the usual social media channels and our website. We'd love to hear your reflections on this episode and your thoughts on our discussion. And we'll see you next time.
Cheerio.
Bye-bye.